moved mountains, building roads and tunnels and railroads through the seemingly impenetrable Rockies. We were the very first state.
Recording in progress.
Good evening. Tonight is a city council meeting, in the city of Louisville, Colorado. And why don't we get roll call?
Mayor Pro Tem Dickinson.
Here.
Councilmember Fahey. Here. Mayor Lay.
Here.
Councilmember Cooperman.
Here.
Councilmember Hefner.
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton. Here. Councilmember Kern. Here.
Please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda this evening?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Right. The next item on the agenda is public comments on items not on the agenda and items on the consent agenda. If you would like to speak tonight, you're welcome to do that. Just fill out a card right outside the council chambers, bring it to the clerk, and she will call your name at the appropriate time. You have 3 minutes to speak, and you don't need to take the full 3 minutes. If you've got somebody in the room or online who will give their time to you, you can speak up to 6 minutes. Ask that people refrain from booing or shouting or generally disturbing the folks that are doing the comments, because it takes a little bit of moxie to get up there, and we want to hear from everybody and not deter anybody from that. So, do we have any public comment?
Robert Gerard.
One second, sorry, we don't have a microphone for you.
There you go.
So I wrote out my comments, and so I'm just going to do this extemporaneously, because if I don't finish in the time, you can still read the comments. So last time I was here, I talked about the $70 million between Boulder and the state that they're giving to the festival that's coming. All right. So even over, that's a 10-year deal. That's $7 million per year. And some of that's in grants and licensing, of course. But what they expect to get out of that is $500 million over the same 10 years. And of course, that's an S curve. So you're not going to get the full return the first year or two. This business situation that I'm talking about is very similar. And the business model that the writer has to go through the literary agent, through publishing houses, is extremely difficult and kind of unnecessary. Whereas with the business model that wraps itself around the city, and the city is integrated into the books. So what I'm proposing is a literary foundation, just like you have an arts foundation. The arts foundation deals with things that are visible, but the literary foundation is going to deal with a whole different set of problems. And literacy, is becoming really touchy area because of AI and different factors. We could offer an AI-free publishing house in this city. You have the resources not only of the test audience, the kids, and I'm saying kids in particular, that are started on chapter books and just about that age and on. And you could focus like that and become branded. Like the city of Louisville could be a brand for a publishing house. Publishing houses are not that hard to start. You just need 2 or 3 people to do the proofreading, and then you have a system for putting it out. And you need a publisher, either a local publisher or Amazon. At any rate, what I'm talking about is really big business. I mean, you have Harry Potter. The difference between our book and Harry Potter is that the magic is in what he speaks. The overall goal of Prince Ralphie is to be a playwright. So I'm teaching kids how to use language, sentence structure, poetry, prose. We get it all. Anyway, I think it's a model worth considering, and I will be back next week to talk about why the artist in the community is important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, looks like we don't have any other public comments. So can I get a motion concerning our consent agenda this evening?
Move that we pass the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Council informational comments and committee reports are next. I'm going to jump ahead on this and just say a huge thank you to staff, and particularly Iris Belitsky, who did with the rest of our staff an absolutely phenomenal job yesterday with the Labor Day parade and the activities around it. It was so much fun. And I'm always amazed at how it goes off, because there were, I think, more folks in it than ever this year, and it just went on quite some time. And a lot of people had a lot of fun, kids, families, and everybody else who showed up, and definitely the people who were in it, which included most of us here. So all of us here, actually, in various ways. So thank you for all of that. And thanks for council being involved in it, too. Go ahead. Any others? Informational comments? Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to thank our economic vitality manager, Vanessa Zarate. We had a really great business beat last week, well attended, and I wanted to thank all the business owners who were there that lent their voices to a really interesting and necessary conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, the Labor Day, the whole weekend, starting with the senior dinner on Friday night, which was very well attended, and then the activities throughout the weekend at the museum, and then the pep parade and the parade. Thank you to Cultural Services, Parks, the Police Department. All of those departments were instrumental in bringing this together. Also, we will be launching soon a battery recycling program where people can drop off their batteries at the library and city services. Also for Cultural Services, huge success on the summer reading program, which is, awesome. There's an increase in participation, and that's great to see. And then this Friday is First Friday, Dog Days of Summer, and that's also being coordinated through Cultural Services. So thank you.
Thanks a lot. So we're on to regular business. So the first item on regular business is a discussion and direction on proposed rule reconsideration of 2009 endangerment finding and greenhouse gas vehicle standards. And I believe we have a presentation from our Deputy City Manager, Sama Fox.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so I have a brief presentation for you all. As you know, this is the proposed rulemaking reconsideration of the 2009 endangerment finding and greenhouse gas vehicle standards. During our 8/19 council meeting, council asked for staff to bring this forward. The rulemaking comment due date is 9/22, so we were originally planning for the September 16th meeting. However, as we read a little bit deeper into this, we saw another deadline of September 15th, so we moved this forward to have the conversation tonight. Per the rulemaking, I'm just going to read you a section of it, but the summary is in your packet. Part of their proposal is to repeal all greenhouse gas emissions standards on the alternative basis that no requisite technology for vehicle and engine emissions control can address the global climate change concerns identified in the findings without risking greater harms to public health and welfare. So on council's legislative agenda, you do not specifically call out federal items like this. However, you have a few items about the environment and greenhouse gas. Your legislative agenda specifically supports state and local legislation that addresses climate change, lowers greenhouse gas emissions, and improve air quality. We did take a moment to reach out to our regional neighbors to see what others were doing around this. We did find that CC4CA, Colorado Climate, I'm going to mess up that title right now, one of our liaisons. Colorado Communities for Climate Action, thank you for the assist, Councilmember Fahey. They have released a toolkit with a draft resolution, a draft letter, and other information that people may use to take action on this. The City of Boulder is preparing a letter for council discussion. I do not have a date on that, but that's something that's working through. And then the City of North Glen is preparing a letter and a resolution for council consideration on September 8th. At this point, that's all that we're aware of for our peers in the neighboring cities occurring and for our regional activities. Council may wish to comment on this. They may wish to use one of the regional things that's already occurring, such as CC4A's letter or resolution as a template for action they may take. Council may also wish to add something like this for our legislative agenda in the future, or not. At that point in time, I'd like to open up for council discussion. I'm happy to try to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. I think, first of all, do we have any questions on council? I want to get to the council discussion and the public comments, actually. Not yet. Why don't we take some public comment right out of the box here?
First up is Helen Moshak, followed by Don Parcher.
Hello, my name is Helen Moshak, and I'm a resident of Louisville. I'm urging the council to take swift action in response to the EPA's proposal to repeal all greenhouse gas emission standards, a dangerous move that threatens public health, environmental integrity, and the progress our community has worked so hard to achieve. I ask the council to expand the council's legislative agenda to include federal rulemaking that impacts climate, air quality, and public health. 2, adopt a resolution reaffirming support for science-based climate strategies, including the EPA's 2009 endangerment finding, and rejecting efforts to dismantle it or weaken federal climate programs. And 3, direct staff to submit formal comments to the EPA on behalf of the City and Council by the September 22nd deadline to participate in the democratic process and publicly reinforce Louisville's commitment to evidence-based climate action. Louisville is committed to sustainability. Now is the time to speak up and stand with communities nationwide working to protect our planet and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Next up is Don Parcher.
Don Parcher, 378 Grouse Court, Louisville, and granddad to Jack and Owen. And I strongly recommend doing whatever you can to make your opinion known that the EPA's intent to repeal that endangerment finding is not a good idea. This seems like a no-brainer to me. It seems like the least that can be done here. We'd like to do a lot more, but please do what you can to protect our. I just feel like, again, I've told you, I just feel like we're past the point of no return, maybe, for saving life on Earth because of climate. So we have to do everything we can. This is a small thing that I strongly encourage you to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. Okay. That is the extent of public comment on that. Let's take it back to council, and I'm going to pick on Josh because it was his initial idea to bring this up for council consideration, and we did. So I'll defer to him. I'm not really picking on him. I'm giving him the opportunity. So take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess I would be most interested in the council or the city formally submitting comments to the federal government, asking them basically not to repeal the endangerment finding. I guess what I would envision us maybe saying, or at least what the structure of a letter or comments might be, is that we would tell a little bit about our own story, sort of what we've done in the city to take climate action, how we've been affected by changes in the climate, whether or not we want to reference the flood or the fire, we possibly could. And then, as I understand, what you really want to go for with these comments is you'd want to make them unique, first of all, and you want to make them substantive. So I feel like, by telling our own story, we could make them unique. And then the way to really make them substantive is to actually cite scientific evidence in support of the endangerment finding, for which there is plenty. So I would ask our staff, our sustainability staff in particular, to sort of pick out what they think would be the best evidence to cite, and to put that in our letter or comments, and then submit it through the appropriate channels.
Yes, Councilmember Fahey.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I agree with what Councilmember Cooperman just said. I would like to begin by suggesting that we sign the letter from the CC4CA as one of the many communities that is supporting their letter opposing this change, and just be a part of that group. And then we could, in addition to that, do a letter of our own that kind of builds on that, as Councilman Cooperman said, that gives our own personal experience. It kind of builds on what the CC4CA's letter says.
Thank you. Others? Yes, Councilmember Curry.
Thanks. So part of the reason that I second this is I agree. But just to clear things up, I would not like for the city to change its policies on legislative agendas and how we handle this. I think this needs to be something unique. This is, in my opinion, a grave danger that the EPA would do something like this. This is like saying that we can start putting chemicals back in our drinking water and our streams. I think that that's ridiculous. So I agree, Councilmember Fahey, that we should be signing the letter. I think that the impact of the city of Louisville signing CC4CA's letter will help them talk about the number of communities that are in support. I am concerned with the time frame that we have and putting additional tasking to our staff too much. If we could take the recommended letter, like the language that's in that letter from CC4CA, so that would limit how many hours that our team really needs to be able to put into this. That would be great. I don't think that we should specifically cite, although I think it's somewhat creative. There could be some argumental inaccuracies, so I would not like for us to specifically discuss any of the incidents that have occurred, natural disasters that have occurred in Louisville, but instead reinforce what our policies, what this community feels is imperative for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and therefore reduce global warming. That would be my opinion.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes. Councilor.
Yeah, I generally agree. I think signing on the letters is a simple thing for the city to do, and I think writing our own letter is a wise thing to do. And I think I agree that, if I'm thinking around like the country, what municipalities do we want to make sure are writing letters about this? Cities that have experienced the devastating result of climate change are the ones that should certainly be speaking up. And so we unfortunately are one of those, Louisville, Boulder, and Superior. And so I think mentioning the harm that was put on us and the economic harm that was put on us, and obviously the general harm that we went through in those experiences, I think do tell a story, and it's why it's so important that we're doing something nationwide to combat climate change. So I think those elements of how it affected us directly are powerful. So I'm not sure why we'd leave them out, but maybe you can explain again. But I think those would be good to have in. But generally, yeah, I agree. I don't know how much time, to Councilmember Kern's concern of staff time, I don't know how much time we're looking at, and certainly sounds like we'd rather get it in sooner than later. So hopefully that can be done quickly. I'm not the one to write the letter myself, but it does seem like staff would be the appropriate way to do that. So generally agree with it, and certainly echo what's been said, that it's laughable to say that greenhouse gases aren't a problem, and unfortunately it's not funny, but certainly something we should oppose.
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. Others, yes.
Yeah, I guess I'll just I'll express the same reservation that I did when we first started talking about this, which is there are many ongoing hot button debates in federal law and federal policy, especially with this administration, all of which, or at least many of which, are extremely important, and they're extremely important to the people who live here. And our city has limited time and resources to get involved and try and move the needle on issues of national importance, which isn't to say they're not important, but we do have to do some priority setting. And, I think doing one doesn't give me a ton of concern. If we start getting into a rhythm of engaging on national political issues, that can quickly become how we spend quite a lot of our time. And I think all you have to do is look at what's going on with the Boulder City Council and how they've been engaged in sort of international political issues over the last few months, and how that's been consuming their open meetings. And I certainly don't want that outcome for us, because they're difficult issues, they're very sensitive issues. People care deeply about them. And it's also true that this group of 7 people has very little ability to do much of anything about them. So I don't think I necessarily oppose doing something on this one, but I do have a strong caution about making this a practice, because it's not the best way for us to spend our time.
Okay. Others? Yes, Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you. So I am in support of what will be the most impactful yet efficient path forward for our staff. It seems like the CC4CA letter, from what I can gather, is a relatively light lift as far as outlining our unique experiences here in Louisville thus far. I trust staff to, again, develop a concise yet impactful message that we could deliver. As far as the broader question about federal being involved in federal concerns beyond what we outline currently in our work plan of local and state, I share similar concerns as Councilmember Hefner. We have a lot of work to do here locally, and with the current administration, we could easily be overcome with federal initiatives, but this one in particular, thank you, Councilmember Cooperman, for bringing this up for discussion, is, in my opinion, very, very important, and therefore warrants us to kind of diverge slightly from what we intended in our work plan.
I appreciate all the comments that have been made. I think I guess my own view about this, I share some of the concerns that Councilmember, frankly, each of the concerns held by each of the council members. I think this is the climate, or the endangerment finding is a linchpin of a lot of policies. And it's a linchpin of our own sustainability efforts in many ways. And certainly the money we've attracted to pay for some of those efforts, the importance of those to our citizens, I think is pretty clear. And I appreciate the comments tonight about that. and the letters, because we've gotten a lot of letters about this. And so I think doing something is far better than resting silent on this. I do have concerns about getting involved in too many. Maybe surprisingly, I think there are going to be others that we're probably going to want to make comments on down the road. I don't know that for sure, but I know, at least from my perspective, there are going to be a lot of cascading effects on state and local governments from what's going on in Washington. And there will be times when I think this issue will come up. I think it is wise to exercise a great deal of caution in that, because we've got so much to do and so much on our work plan to accomplish that we need to be careful. That said, my own sense of it is that I think the CCA or CC4A letter is a good one. I'm reluctant to do a separate letter just because I think this is a time when staff is really overburdened with other things. And I think, for my part, to the point about having the most sort of impactful effect, I think it's really important to stand with other cities. And I think that in many ways makes more of a difference in this circumstance than probably a letter would anyway. You could do both. We could do both. I hear pretty much unanimous thoughts, switching to kind of thinking about what the consensus is, pretty much unanimous thoughts about doing a letter or the signing off on the letter. I think that's pretty clear. It's a question of a letter of our own, and a number of people on the council have said, it looks like 1, 2, 3, probably 4 folks. So that's more than half of us to do a letter. I don't particularly want to take a vote on this. I want to find out whether we've got some comments of maybe the 3 on this. Yes.
Mayor, if I may, I was going to offer just a summary of what I've heard and what could be the council direction if you all support it. So I have heard support for the CC4CA letter. I have also heard support for Louisville sending some separate comments in the form of a letter. However, recognition that that's not something that we need to be too time-consuming or exhaustive. We do have our sustainability program manager, Hannah, listening, who did help with this material. She and I can put together a letter to submit for the comments within the time frame.
Other council members who are reluctant have any thoughts about that? I mean, it's fine with me. I think that may be a good way of not a unanimous, but a consensus view. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Now, the question is timing. I know that there was a comment in the materials that if they received comments by today, they would have the most likely chance of being heard or seen. I don't know exactly what that means, but how long do you think it would take to get that draft letter back to us?
I think that with staff, we will aim for that September 15th timeline, which is in the earlier timeline in the rulemaking.
Okay. It might make sense to send the CC4A letter
We
in
could certainly do
advance
that
of
sooner. Yep.
There's no reason to hold that up,
Yeah.
I think, right? Okay. And then you bring the other letter back and we can, or are you going to send it straight on?
We plan to send it straight on.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. Very good. All right. Do you need any more direction from us? Okay, thanks. The next one, only a small item. City manager's recommended 2026 supplemental budget presentation. It looks like Director of Finance is going to be making that presentation, and Am I right, or is it going to be a tag team?
You are correct.
Okay.
Would you like to start us off, or do you want me to just get going?
Very good. Have
I'm
at
going
it.
to get going. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor, council members. This evening, you'll be receiving a presentation of the city manager's 2026 recommended supplemental budget. Before I get going too far, I have a few thank yous I want to get through. While I have the privilege of presenting this evening, it is the work of many that got us to this point, the efforts of many, starting with our city manager and deputy city manager. Thank you for your work and guidance. I would like to thank the Finance Committee in its entirety, specifically Chair Hefner, Councilmember Cooperman, and Hamilton for their significant efforts and work. I'd like to thank my department heads for all their work and for their staff. This is a monumentous task. I'd like to thank financial analyst Mahir Mansourabadi for a lot of the work for putting together the budget and a lot of the materials you have in this evening's packet. I would also like to express my appreciation to the entire council for your deliberations, direction, moxie, and hard choices made during the July 23rd budget retreat. The retreat took nearly the entire 5 hours, but that input and direction allowed the staff to make significant progress towards presenting a structurally balanced plan for you this evening. We are experiencing turbulent times of uncertainty and economic headwinds. We have later included a slide in this presentation that highlights some of the difficulties other entities are facing. It's a credit to this council and to previous ones for their steadfast dedication to conservative principles, adherence to our financial policies, which have positioned us advantageously. So today's presentation is a result of significant work to date in developing the 2026 supplemental budget. The budget as presented is structurally balanced. By law or by code, we are required to adopt a balanced budget. By GFOA best practices and financial policy 5.3, you are to adopt a structurally balanced budget, which means your ongoing revenues are equal to or greater than your ongoing expenses. I would like to highlight the following items in the 2026 supplemental budget, essentially changes from our base budget. Market pay adjustment for our sworn police officers, a set aside to join the Boulder County Office of Disaster Management, significant investments in IT, security, and process improvements, the Marshall Fire Building Permit rebate set aside, a multitude of community events, the 150-250 celebration next year, Marshall 5-year anniversary, city council sponsor event fund, and expanded holiday lighting. And I bolded this last bullet point, a structurally balanced 2026 budget. As I alluded to earlier, some of our neighbors are facing budgetary challenges in the region. Cities, counties, and the state are facing these challenges, significant deficits, budget cuts, and staffing reductions. Again, it's a testament to your council and previous council's financial discipline, stewardship of our resources that have placed us in this fortuitous position to have a structurally balanced budget before you today. I'd like to highlight the significant work that has gotten us to today, beginning last year with the adoption of our city's biennial 2-year budget, Monday, November 4th. Tuesday, July 1st, the Finance Committee held a special meeting on the 2026 budget. A lot of work was done on Wednesday, July 23rd, our City Council's annual budget retreat. In August, the Finance Committee met again to presented a budget update and a retreat recap. I stand before you today with the city manager's recommended budget. You'll see me 2 more times at least for the final budget presentation the 3rd Tuesday of October, and for adoption the first Monday, November 3rd, along with the mill levy adoption. If you recall, much of the time spent at the budget retreat focused on 2 funds, the general fund and park fund, as the remaining 19 city funds were structurally balanced at that time. An update of the general fund since the budget retreat and last month's August Finance Committee meeting are as follows. Council and Finance Committee supported the staff's recommended pathway to achieve a structurally balanced budget for the general fund in 2026, and those were: we reduced the abatement line item to align with trends. We shifted the computer replacement allocations from the general fund into the capital fund. We eliminated vacant risk management specialist positions with those duties to be absorbed by other departments. We incorporated the latest healthcare insurance projections into our salary projection modeling. And we have retained the wind-hail deductible buy-down by resetting our coverage consistent with levels from 2020 to 2024. All right, we got your first chart. Implementing the pathway from the previous slide allows us to present the general fund's budget structurally balanced, with forecasted revenues at $28.8 million, the blue bar, of which $1 million is one-time, 27.8 is ongoing. Our total general fund forecasted expenses at $29.9 million, of which 27.8 is ongoing, 2.1 would be one-time. The 27.8 and the 27.8 is how you achieve structurally balanced. Within the red bar, the expense side, 2.1 is one-time, of which a large portion is 1.7 for the Marshall Fire permit set aside. Of note, this also incorporates approximately $1.5 million in operational turnback. Zooming out on this slide, you just saw 2026, so this shows the forecast for the general fund. It's been updated, and you'll note throughout the model, your fund balances adhere to financial policies, maintaining the 15% operational, and as well as the target 20-25% operational reserve target. And now an update of the park fund since the budget retreat. Council and the Finance Committee supported the recommended pathway to achieve structurally balanced for the park fund for 2026. Those were a transfer from the Conservation Trust Fund for park operations in the amount of $100,000 annually in the near term as a stopgap measure. You also directed staff to evaluate the inflationary factor, the CPI transfer methodology used for the Parks Fund, annual general fund transfer, which is set by City Financial Policy 2.3. Staff will add this to the 2026 Finance Committee work plan, along with its annual review of all city financial policies. With this feedback and direction received at the budget retreat and August Finance Committee meeting, the Parks Fund is structurally balanced for 2026. On the left-hand side, your blue bars are your revenues, $2.8 million in total. This includes $1.2 million in transfers, but the 1.1 is from the general fund, 100,000 is from the Conservation Trust Fund. The remainder is largely the dedicated sales tax. The red bar, $2.8 million ongoing. Parks Fund, if you recall, is an operational fund now. Parks capital expenses have been shifted to the capital fund. Within that red bar, it also incorporates approximately $200,000 in operational turnback, and there's a fund balance in the green bar. The next slide will zoom out, and you'll see the long-term forecast for the Parks Fund. You'll note that staff is projecting the use of the Conservation Trust Fund through the city's next biennial budget, or 2028, which will provide staff an opportunity to evaluate the general fund transfer and CPI methodology to parks, and time to implement those changes, if any, without disruption to other funds. This, again, will be added to the 2026 Finance Committee work plan. Additionally, with a near-term application of the Conservation Trust Fund, there are no adjustments to any capital projects that were previously funded by this Conservation Trust Fund in our CIP program due to this near-term or short-term transfer. Your other funds. All remaining city funds in your 2026 budget are structurally balanced. The long-term financial forecasts, which are required per our city financial policies, can be found in your agenda packet materials within the budget message transmittal letter, approximately the first 16 pages of your draft budget book for you. The next few slides will highlight the adjustments made to the 2026 budget, essentially changes from our base budget. Now, you've seen these before. We spent significant time during the budget retreat reviewing each of these items individually, so today I will quickly run through them. These were all supported by the city manager and your council and have been included within the 2026 budget. Market adjustments to sworn police officers, the Boulder County ODM buy-in, IT software maintenance to keep up with inflation, the annual external audit costs that includes single audits if required and ACFR preparation, travel, training, and meetings budget enhancement for libraries, efficiency systems and process improvement contingency funds within the CMO office, the developed impact fee update, continuing, the potential or resident-led initiative special election, the Marshall Fire 5-year anniversary celebration, utility billing and tax collection administration software upgrades, additional police vehicles, additional vehicle for community development, electric vehicle, library public copier replacement, Owl Park fence replacement, continuing, the Marshall Fire building permit rebate set aside, holiday lighting expansion, the 4th of July 250-150 commemoration, and the council-sponsored events fund. As it relates to board and commission budget requests, feedback received from the council during the budget retreat from those requests were directing staff, directing parks internal staff to explore potential sites for Puck and Stick, and the Sustainability Neighborhood Pilot Program, backpacks funded one time. Other policy direction received from council during the budget retreat, open space acquisition target reserve was set at $5 million. The current balance is approximately $315,000. And the historical preservation fund tax exploration was added to the 2026 work plan. Future budget public meetings are expected to be held on the following dates: Tuesday, October 21st, and Monday, November 3rd. With that, I would like to thank you for your attention, your work, and support in developing the 26 budget. Happy to answer your questions you may have.
Thank you. Council questions? Yes, Councilmember Cooperman.
Just one little question. I'm wondering, do you think we could find a little bit of money to fund one more concert in the park for 2026?
I would offer, we have Brandy here in the audience if she would like to come up and address that, because I know that that's a discussion that they're having for different ways to provide different events for next year. Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you, Councilman. We are certainly looking into what it would take to find those additional, it's about $2,000 to $4,000 to provide that. The team right now is currently looking at what it would take to diversify our funding for some of these projects that are so well beloved by our community and make sure that we're assessing our alignment with our resources to those. So yes, we can explore it. At this point, I cannot guarantee it. Okay, thank you.
The one question I had, it was just wanted you to go back to the park fund forecast slide. It looks like it's 11 in your packet. It looks like we drop below the fund balance drops below the minimum reserve projected in 2030. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Yes, Mayor, keen observation. By 2030, we do drop below the 15% operational reserve within the Parks Fund. You could note that the CTF transfer, 100,000 transfer occurs for 3 years, then stops. We certainly have a plan, staff has a plan to address the imbalance in parks. We just don't have that plan in concrete yet. So these forecasts are really useful and helpful in seeing these things come in. 2030 is a few years from now, but we'll be here before we know it. So we'll start working in the immediate to address that.
That sounds like a stay tuned. Yeah, okay. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Didn't you say that this graph does not include a potential increase or change to the CPI calculation that research could create the change that makes this work?
Pro Tem, that is correct, yes.
Any other questions? All right. Why don't we take public comment if we have any?
First up is Helen Moshak, followed by Susan McEckert.
Good evening, council members. My name is Helen Moshak. I'm back again, and I'm a Louisville resident. I'm speaking on behalf of LOSA, the Louisville Open Space Advocates, to urge you to invest in all of Louisville's green spaces, both parks and open space. These areas together shape our community's connection to nature, environment, health, and civic identity. While parks receive substantial support from the General Fund and Conservation Trust Fund, adding up to over $7 million through 2030, in addition to half of the original open space and park sales tax, the open space program budgets, both operations and capital projects, are limited to its share of the sales tax fund and impact fees. We ask that council manage resources in a way that allows for meaningful investment in open space acquisition and restoration. This is not an either-or, it must be both. Open space property acquisitions, despite strong community support, partnership funding, and viable city funding options, are often met with hesitation or rejection. These opportunities are time-sensitive. Once lost, they are gone for good. Available funding sources include the Open Space Acquisition Reserve, Open Space Fund Balance, General Fund Reserves, and the Conservation Trust Fund. Council has the ability to adjust project timelines and draw on reserves to make room for urgent acquisitions. This includes funding for acquisitions like the Gateway property, Coal Creek riparian zone parcels, the Centennial Valley Hillside Prairie properties, as well as restoration projects and trail connections, and strategic staffing to support grants and volunteer coordination. Please be sure to work closely with OSAB. They are such a valuable partner and community resource. They are an incredible source of advice, feedback, and connection to our stakeholders. Open space is a cornerstone of Louisville's identity and resilience. One more note, please consider creating a financial policy that permanently waives or rebates permit fees for any resident who loses their home to fire, flood, or natural disaster. Recovery is hard enough. This would be a meaningful step forward, easing that burden. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Next up is Susan, followed by Larry Donner.
Hello, City Council. This is Susan McEachern. I'm Chair of the Open Space Advisory Board and a Louisville citizen. As Chair of OSAB, I would like to say that the board would have welcomed the opportunity to comment on the Acquisitions Reserve Fund cap. Since we didn't have that opportunity, as a private citizen, I would urge the council to hold off on establishing a cap at the present time. It will be 10 years before we reach that $5 million level, and it can easily be revisited at a later time. Indeed, given the cost of acquiring valuable open space properties, we will always need more money than the acquisition fund will be able to provide. We will always need more funding than the acquisition fund can provide, so I hope that we can think about alternative methods of acquiring those really important open space properties. I would also like to speak on the issue of providing extra funding from the Conservation Trust Fund to parks over the next 3 years. I understand that Parks is facing a deficit and fully support the council's decision to allocate $100,000 from the fund to parks in 2026. However, I think that council should hold off on a multi-year commitment at this time. The Open Space Division also has many unmet urgent needs as well, and I hope they will be taken into account as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan.
Next up is Larry Donner, followed by Andy Dorsey.
Yes, my name is Larry Donner. I live at 1020 Willow Place. Is this an appropriate time to comment on the manager's proposed budget additions?
Sure.
Right. On December 30th, 2021, a fast-moving grass fire swept through poorly maintained open spaces and destroyed 550 homes in the city of Louisville. The city was caught absolutely flat-footed. In the years since, we haven't done much to improve our posture to help protect and defend the citizens. Joining the County Office of Disaster Management offers an opportunity to greatly reduce the negative impacts of any future large-scale events or disasters that may befall Louisville. So I'm just calling to urge you support the manager's recommendation to join the Office of Disaster Management. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Next up is Andy Dorsey.
Good evening. I'm Andy Dorsey. I live on Cliff Rose Lane in Louisville, and I'm also the vice chair of OSAB. I just first want to thank the council for your work in considering acquiring other open space properties. I know that that's not an easy lift, and you have to think a lot about the finance of it and how it all is going to come together. And so we really appreciate your consideration of the properties that I think you're working on right now. Helen and Susan have spoken as eloquently, more eloquently than I can. I'd just like to add my support to what they've said, both about the Open Space Reserve and about the long-term needs of open space. There are a lot of ways that open space can and should be improved. To the last person's point, the open space staff has spent a lot of time in recent months working on fire mitigation. That's demanded a lot of their focus, will continue to demand a lot of their focus, but it takes a lot of their energy away from some of the things that we need to do to improve the resources in open space. So as you think about the long-term budgeting of the Conservation Fund, I hope that's one thing you'll keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Okay. Seems like we've got the public comments that we have for tonight. I'll take it back to council. Are there comments, thoughts? I guess I'll say one thing, which is thank you to all of those who are involved in this budgeting process. And it's not over. It's, until we get to voting on it, there's still stuff that's going to be done. And I really appreciate all of the work. I appreciate the work of citizens who are paying attention to this. It used to be that we had much less involvement by residents in providing comments, and I really do appreciate that because it is a long process and it's hard to keep up with that. I would be remiss not to thank the Finance Committee, which has done a marvelous job helping guide that from a policy level. And I can't speak highly enough of that either, and council for, I think, just a terrific budget retreat. I don't think, I've been in a lot of budget retreats, and I don't think the one we just had was, I think it was the best one I've had in my memory. So I appreciate that work. And so others, comments about the budget? Yes, Mayor Protem.
Yeah, I mean, I think first I just want to comment on just the topic of parks and open space, and I think that it's going to be interesting for us over the next several years to, we have an incredible percentage of our community is sort of parks and open space, which is fantastic. And we're also looking to spend millions of dollars on increasing those things, which then when we have more of it, there's more maintenance. And, I think sometimes we don't talk enough, I think, about the quantity we're going to get in Red Tail Ridge over the next few years and what that's going to mean from a maintenance perspective. And so we're adding and adding and adding in a community that already has basically more open space than any other community I've ever been in. And so it's one of those, it's a little bit hard for me to figure out what 10 years from now is going to look like, and, how much funding we're going to have for that. We just increased that tax, and then we're sitting here going, we don't have enough money for parks and open space right after we increase the taxes, and we're going to purchase a bunch more open space that we have to manage, right? So I think it's just one of those things to think about as we move forward. The other thing, if you don't mind throwing up right the long-term general fund balance, I just had this memory, and I think it's just, I wanted to give this to all of you because I was going through this experience myself, is that whether it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago on the Finance Committee, I remember Dennis Maloney and I kind of battling over, how much money we had above the target line. And I'm like, shouldn't we have about the target line? Isn't that the point of a target line? We have all these millions of dollars above our target line. Isn't it healthy and fine and wise to spend our general fund down to the target line in useful, wonderful ways for our community, and not to just be hoarding a bunch of extra money above the target line? And one of his comments was, well, I don't think the target line's high enough. I don't want to be down at that line, because if we're down at that line, it's kind of scary. I'm like, isn't the minimum reserve line kind of the scary line? That's got to stay above the minimum reserve, but the target is kind of a hopeful thing that we're hoping to get to one day, up to that target, but we got to stay above minimum. He's like, well, I don't think either line's high enough, if I'm being honest. And so we moved both lines up. We increased the minimum balance requirement and increased the target reserve so that it wouldn't be so scary if we got near those lines. And I'm just kind of noticing, I think we kind of get in the same thing. You get like really scared to get near those lines, which are now higher than they were. And so I think it's just more of a psychology thing that it's, and you point out, Chris, on the parks, like, oh my God, we're going to get right to the line it's supposed to be at. But that's a minimum. So is it supposed to be at the minimum? It's harder. But I almost want to get rid of the target if it's not a target. Like if it's a number that we are scared to get to, that it's not much of a target, right? We're concerned about getting close to our target. That just seems odd to me. And so it's more of a bigger conversation for the out years. And as we continue to have these conversations is how do we look at this? How fear-based are we? Like, I don't like that decline, but at the same time, I would love to see that green bar drop right to the white line next year and have it be going up in the future years, right? And that's what we talk about is there something we can do that uses these funds that takes the direction in the other direction as opposed to having it and losing it over time. So I don't have a constructive like that. Therefore, we should do this today, or we should change our budget, guys. I think we've done a great job. I think it's fantastic. I was just thinking about it today and wanted to say it in a public setting to all of you that, I think we just all need to keep, thinking about what these lines really mean and how we're using them and what our goals are. And to your first comments, Director Bailey, this is unbelievable. In this day and age with the communities around us, we are looking at potentially being $5 million above our target 5 years from now. That's the strife that we're in right now. And not only that, but it's a higher target than we used to have as a percentage. So it's phenomenal. Like, we are in a phenomenal position, and that is due certainly to councils before me, this council, this staff before this staff. It's really great, and I don't think enough positive things can be said about the work that everyone's done. And I do, again, appreciate the Finance Committee that I am not on currently for all your hard work in having these meetings every month and doing the like we like to say, the heavy lifting of this work. And I appreciate, like most of our residents do, the result of it. So thanks for all your hard work.
Councilmember Cooperman.
I appreciated those comments, and one of them brought up a question for me. So you didn't show the Open Space Fund in particular, but as I recall, its fund balance is quite healthy going out to 2030. And I was curious, when you model that fund, do you try to take into account future acquisitions and the cost for maintenance for those? I mean, some of the, like at Red Tail Ridge, we know we're getting that land, for instance, so we could try to model it, whereas other land we don't necessarily know we're getting, but just a thought.
Would you like me to respond, council member? Sure. It's a very good question. We do model anticipated and projected increases to existing staff, but not potential future staff needed for more parcels owned. So it kind of gets a little bit out to the unknown for us to model.
Councilor Murphy.
I would just like to also thank staff and everyone involved in this budget process. It's amazing that you've gotten it to this point. And I will just quickly comment on Councilmember Dickinson's comment about the fund balance. I think that periodically, because of the cost of living increases and costs of everything increasing over time, that minimum balance does have to gradually increase also.
I would make one last comment, and Councilmember Dickinson and I have had this discussion before, and I know they've been lively discussions that you've sparked or added to over 6 years. And being a part of those earlier councils that I think drove up the targeted balance numbers. I think one thing we do forget a little bit in this is just how dire some very large disasters can be. And I've had some discussions with the city manager about potentially talking about these issues, about the fund balances to perhaps put a little bit more meat on the bones of the rules. Because I think if we look back at a couple of the major crises that we've had, we see them smoothing out over time. But during those times, there's huge, fire, for example, huge amounts of money that are coming that need to be paid out right away, not necessarily all reimbursed right away. And it adds up faster than we know. So from that standpoint, I think a lively discussion is worthwhile, because I think it is sometimes confusing. You look at those numbers and you just say, gosh, there's so much money there. Why, what are we waiting for? And it's a legitimate question. I think there are very legitimate answers. And I think in the past, I can tell you from my experience, we have been relatively conservative. That's partly, that's what we felt the citizens wanted, but I think also it is perhaps worry about what we can sink into pretty quickly if we get a little bit too profligate. But it's a good point, and more to come on that. Anybody else? I think otherwise, Councilmember Hamilton.
First and foremost, I want to thank Councilmember Hefner, who is the chair of the Finance Committee. I am so grateful for his leadership and the amount of time that he's dedicated working with staff to produce what I think is a phenomenal 2026 budget. So thank you for that. Just one more quick comment regarding the minimum balance topic. I think for me, when I'm looking at where we're standing today, it's the trend that's concerning of consistent expenses being more than our revenue. I think, to the mayor's point and some other discussions as well, if there's a one-time expense that draws us down to that line due to an unforeseen circumstances, or maybe it's a strategic reason as well, we need to tap into it. That's totally fine. But for me, the trend is what's concerning in some of our what is the word I'm looking for? Not budgets, but fund forecasting. Thank you. So I look forward to discussing this some more if we end up putting it on an agenda in the future. But for now, thank you, Councilmember Hefner, for your work, and staff as well. And I have no other comments on the budget.
With that, I think we'll close the item, and let's go to the city attorney's report.
I have no report this evening. Thank you.
Council members, any identification of future agenda items? Okay, I think we're good on that. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?